I'm Jennifer Laura Thompson, and you're listening to You Might Know Her From with Damien and Ann.
There's this new show. It's called Claim to Fame. And I've been waiting weeks to talk to you about it. Do you know the premise?
I've never even heard of it.
It is like The Masked Singer meets The Mole or Big Brother.
I loved Celebrity Mole.
It's all of these people put into a house who have a famous relative. And they can't tell the house who their relative is, and then they compete in challenges every week, and then whoever ends up in the bottom, that person gets to choose someone else in the house to guess the celebrity based on clues in the house, clues they get in the challenge, how they look.
This is a blood relative, not like a wife.
A blood relative. And so then they guess.
Phenomenal.
So then they guess, and if they guess correctly, then that person has to go home. And if they guess incorrectly, then the person guessing has to go home. Anyway, folks, I'm not going to give any spoilers away. I don't want to spoil it because I do think Anne will like it. She'll watch it in a year, though. But
I have a question, though. Are the celebrities like celebrities that I know?
So
or is it like a reality star's brother that I will have never heard of?
So this is the thing. I don't want to give spoilers away, but they do. I don't really quite understand like what the viewer is supposed to get out of it other than the excitement. But they do reveal in episodes, like each episode, someone will be like, so my mom is, and so then the contestant will like tell you who their relative is. So it's not like you're kind of doing the work at home based on the clues, but then in a certain, like the first episode, one woman says, my grandmother is X. Okay. And so like in the very first episode, she tells you who her grandmother is. So my question to you is, I can tell you and our listeners who some of the celebrities are.
100% don't tell me because I'm going to consume this. What channel is it on? Is it on like OWN?
It's on ABC and it airs on Hulu like the next day.
Oh, perfect. So it's still on.
It's in real time, and it's hosted by the Jonas Brothers. But here's the cool part about that. It's hosted by Kevin Jonas, who's like the loser of the three.
Yeah.
And Frankie Jonas.
Like the unknown Jonas.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was like...
Okay, but here's the thing. I saw that Kevin Jonas is on some other reality show where he like rebuilds homes or like he builds homes.
Like, I like Kevin, I think got like a chin implant. I was like, he looks good. And then I was like, I think I like Frankie. He seems queer. He's kind of like gender fucky, like has painted nails and like puka shell like chokers and like and I was like, I think I like Frankie.
Maybe the Jonas Brothers are okay. I don't really know anything about them. Maybe they're okay.
Never forget Nick Jonas being at the fucking Pulse Vigil.
No, that's true. That was the worst. God bless Derek Smith. I think we were just talking about this, but oh my God.
Derek Smith inspired that scene in Queer as Folk where they basically like catcalled that stupid like gay.
What do you say? Why are you here, Zac Efron?
Yeah.
So good. Oh God. Well, that is a pitch that is worth me watching. Like you've sold me.
I just want to say that like
probably more my speed than The Masked Singer. I don't know why.
They're A-list. They're A-list celebrities, baby. These are A-list celebrities.
I'm just gonna throw out a name of one person that I think might be involved. Melissa Gilbert.
No, not to my knowledge yet. A-list. Okay. I mean, not to Melissa Rivers. You said Melissa Rivers or Gilbert?
I'm worried that it's going to be like Bradley Cooper's sister.
I mean, it's more along that line than Melissa Gilbert.
So it's somewhere in the middle between Melissa Gilbert's like cousin and Bradley Cooper's sister.
Yeah. I mean, there's a movie star sister in the house. There's a very famous football player's daughter, a very famous... Like Hollywood,
Troy Aikman's daughter? It's like
someone like that, yeah. There's like an EGOT winner's relative in it, like a very famous person, not like a producer, like a very famous person.
That's for sure Whoopi's relative. Okay, all right. I'll pencil in some guesses. I won't Google it because I hate a spoiler. That is a show that I will watch. Thank you for that recommendation.
Folks, it's 20 minutes in, and we're back with another episode
of You Might Know Her From.
With Anne and Damien.
Ooh, switching it up. This is our podcast where we shoot the shit with each other. I'm not wearing any pants and Damien is shirtless. In case you want a visual of what's happening right now, it's 96 degrees. There's a storm brewing and pea-sized hail about to come to New York City. So we're hoping for a little bit of a heat break. And this is our podcast where we talk about what's going on in our lives, what we're watching, what we're reading, what we're consuming. And of course, we interview an actress or a non-binary performer. Each episode, we dig deep on their life and career. And so if you're here for us, if you're here for the actor, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. If you're a longtime listener, you might know that we are on what we refer to as our summer hiatus, which is where we take a little bit of a breather and we drop a few surprise episodes each month. And that is what we are doing right here and right now. So welcome back. I hope you all are having a great summer. Damien and I have been doing this thing where it's sort of rare, where we're actually not in constant contact because both of us have been sort of like in and out of town for the summer, seeing family, seeing friends. And I was just on a little bit of a truncated trip where I went to Missouri and I saw my family. And then I got to go to Seattle for 3 days, essentially 3.5 days, where my partner and I flew out to Seattle and got to see Sue Bird's last home game in Seattle, which was really exciting and super gay. And I heard from a lot of you, by the way, this is just a sidebar, but I heard from a lot of you about how much you loved the Dot Marie Jones episode earlier this summer, which us too. She was incredible. So if you haven't listened to it, go listen. But a lot of people have came to me and said, you've got to go take Dot Marie Jones to a WNBA game. And I said, I know. She really seemed like she was on board.
It's
so
going to happen,
let me tell
babe.
you. We're going to do it. Next time we get to LA, we're getting Dot Marie Jones. But I have to say, it's August when this is being recorded. And if you don't like sports, that's okay. I didn't ever really like sports except for basketball, too. But let me just sell you on the WNBA. It is the gayest, blackest, queerest, most progressive sports league that exists. And it's playoffs at the end of August. I just found out about a couple that exists on the Connecticut Sun, and now like 7 of the 10 people on their roster are out and queer, and a lot of them are dating each other. There is no better sports league, so if you want to watch basketball, if you're on the fence, the WNBA is the thing to watch. That's my pitch. I'm sorry. I really don't care about sports otherwise, but it's very important to me.
I love it. You're always sending me TikToks of different players that are in relationships with each other, with other women, but then they're making content together. It does seem, I mean, I know not everybody in the WNBA is a lesbian or self-identified lesbian, but I just do love lesbians so much. I mean, we just saw Abby Jacobson got engaged to one of her co-stars for A League of Their Own, and I was like, I love gay people, but I love gay women because they're just like, we worked on this thing together, we're on this team together, and yes, now we're fucking getting married.
Now we are married and we'll probably have a production company together in 6 months. I'm really happy for her. I feel like Abby has had a real glow up, and I think she's great, and I'm excited for that series. I wasn't sure I was going to be excited, but now I'm hopeful that it's as gay as I think it's going to be.
I think it's going to be really gay, actually.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of things that are like queer, Angelica Ross is going to be
my
Roxy
God, that's right.
in fucking Chicago on Broadway. I mean, what a time to be alive.
Should we get the Weislers for this show? I mean, how many times do we have to talk about fucking Chicago? Look, on this show we don't even have to talk to Barry. I'm happy to just have Fran.
We talk to Fran.
Yeah, let's just get Fran. We don't need Barry's
Is it Francine
content.
or Francis? I'd like to know.
Oh, I hope it's Francine.
What do you have against Francis?
My Aunt Frances is one of my favorite names. Frances
Fisher was at
I just saw
Jolie
this too.
Fisher's mom's birthday party.
Yeah, Connie Francis. That's what made you think of it.
Connie Francis and Frances Fisher together.
Oh my God, the interconnectedness
I do love
that this show has brought us.
Yeah, there's
so good.
A lot of those LA you might know her from are all pals. They're all palsy.
They're the Union Strong Women of Los Angeles. Jodie Long, Jolie Fisher,
Patricia
Richardson,
Frances Fisher.
Whew, boy. I'm happy for Angelica Ross. I think she's wonderful. We've actually been trying to get her for the show for a long time. So hopefully this is finally the thing. Maybe we get to go backstage on Broadway and we get to talk to Angelica Ross. That's a dream.
Speaking of women dating women, she tweeted recently, like, I thought my mom would be happy to know that I'm finally dating women, but she was not. And I thought that was so funny.
She's so smart and so cool.
I agree. I totally agree. She makes me laugh. Yeah, it's just been like, I feel like I haven't seen you in so long. I feel like there's so much to talk about. I feel like I don't even know where to begin. I'm just going to like rattle off some things, say things, and then you tell me if you want to say anything about it.
Perfect.
Kim Cattrall and Queer as Folk, the reboot.
Okay, motherfuckers, watch the show. I paid for Peacock for a month so I could binge this series. Now, I'm not going to watch anything else on Peacock, but this show was good. And Kim Cattrall is doing things that are interesting. And Damien is selling me on the fact that he thinks that her character arc, like she's selling the character by the end of it. And I will say that we're not going to reveal spoilers on this show for that series. But if you know us and you trust us, go watch Queer as Folk All 8 episodes on Peacock are available right now. You won't regret it. I will say that, like, I thought it was way better than the Canadian-American version of the show. I didn't watch the British version, so I can't speak to that. But Kim Cattrall has some very special developments. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I know. It's the shock that nobody had told us to watch it sooner. Like, we talk about Kim Cattrall for 80% of our friendship, and no one alerted us to this. So thank God.
That's how we know no one is watching it. Like, literally none of you have watched it. So please go watch it. I do think it's worth your time for other reasons. There's actually, I think, some really great storylines related to trans characters that we haven't seen on, like, I don't know that Peacock is mainstream, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah. And also just like queer people who are living with disabilities. Like, it has cool things, and it also feels like a nice, like, actually diverse queer group of friends in ways that are like not tokenizing them the way that I feel like sometimes the L word historically, and also the L word Generation Q has done, where they sort of like 100%. Put people that are not like the status quo of the group of friends, like they sort of put them in the outskirts and like silo them off. But, you know, maybe L word Generation Q is going to figure it out, because they're on my topics as well, because we have, for joining season 3, we have Kalani, Margaret Cho, former guest of the show, and former guest of the show, Joanna Cassidy, and gay icon, Joey Lauren Adams.
Okay, these people have been hot topics recently. Remember that, it wasn't like Kehlani and SZA, there was like a thing that was happening between them for a while, but I think that's no longer a thing. I'm kind of excited about Kehlani, and I am excited about Joanna Cassidy, who, when we talked to her on the show, like had played a lesbian with
Meredith Baxter Birney,
who we've been angling for years.
Didn't you DM Meredith Baxter's now wife and say, like, didn't I make you do that?
I did that on my own. I DM'd her wife, who I found on Instagram, and then a no response. So I will go to serious disturbing lengths.
Anne's embarrassed. Anne's embarrassed that I outed this. We need her, and it's hard to get in touch with.
She like has no people on IMDb Pro. It's just difficult. But these are, look, we need Kelly McGillis. We need Meredith Baxter Birney. What other late in life lesbians do we need? Christy McNichol.
That's exactly who I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, I want Jodie Foster as well while we're at it.
Oh my God. I feel like there's a world in which we get Jodie Foster just because she's like, what the fuck? Why not? You know what I mean?
While we're talking about things just all over the place, all over the map, I just feel like I'm coming in at a 10 with my list. I want to implore you listeners to watch, if you have interest, to watch P-Valley. It's on Starz. It's such a weird show. It's written by and created by Katori Hall, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. And I just think it's like so smart and so fucking weird and so specific and very, very gay. Really across the spectrum, really queer. I mean, one of the main characters is a non-binary person, and I just love the character of Uncle Clifford and just like the way the show creates this very specific weird world, and like the Memphis dialect is so specific that like I feel like it can be it can throw you off a little bit. The conceit is that it's a strip club, and it's really focusing on a lot of these, you know, black women in the club who are dancers, but also, you know, Uncle Clifford, who's a non-binary character, and then there's just this other, you know, group of other folks that orbit the strip club. Anyway, it's very good. I highly recommend it. It's not many episodes. It's on Starz. It's only 2 seasons, and it's in its 2nd season right now. I just feel like no one's really talking about it, maybe, or not enough people. So I hope that you give it a try.
I appreciate that. You have been pushing that show for a while, and I have not watched it, so I'm adding it to my list. We were talking about celebrity siblings for, what was the name of the show that you wanted to talk about?
Claim to Fame, baby.
Claim to Fame, and the first thing I thought of was how JoJo Siwa said that Candace Cameron Bure is the meanest celebrity she's ever met. And I was just like, she is an icon. I know that people throw that word around, but JoJo Siwa has literally become an icon at such a young age. Like, I feel like she's an incredible person. I am not even joking. I'm not, you know, like Damien and I play this game, and it's like part of our personality, because I think sometimes people don't understand that sometimes you start liking someone as a joke. Right? So I'm like, ha ha, LOL, like I'm so into JoJo Siwa. Isn't that funny? Because she's like a psychopath. And then somehow you consume so much of her content, or like she does something that is surprising or off brand, and you're like, oh, that's kind of different. I didn't expect that from you, because your expectations are at a certain level for someone. And then at a certain point, the tables completely turn, where you are suddenly now completely in earnest invested in this person as a person that you root for, that you go to bat for in conversations that no one else cares about. And you will be like, I'm going to die on the hill that is JoJo Siwa is a fucking icon. And here I am. And it happened for Damien and I with multiple people. And this is why, like, some people like, why didn't you hate that person? And you're like, yeah. But now it's like this.
I know there is someone recently that I was like, I love her now. And I don't know who it is, but I was like, I'm a forever fan.
To me, that is like a queer sensibility, and I don't know if that's true or not, because I know a lot of queer people that do not get it. So I'm not saying that's accurate, but for me, it is something that is very true to Damien and I's friendship that a lot of people don't understand.
It's kind of also Kim Cattrall. It was a bit that I was like going so hard for her that I was like, actually?
Yeah.
Right. She's a revelation.
I wish I could have seen her private lives. No, it's one of the things I love about you and our friendship and this podcast. Okay, do you have anything else that's like up to say? Because I feel like we have something really sad to address.
I know. I've been going through my whole entire list before we get to monkeypox.
I was going to say the death of Olivia Newton-John.
I know. I set you up for that, though. I thought it was good.
That was nice. I appreciated that. Like, what is it? Bump, set, spike. Oh, my God. I made a sports metaphor. Okay. So... it just like I think I am in the midst of a work transition right now in my personal life. So my brain is a little cloudy. I have to say that when I found out the news that Olivia Newton-John died, I was so sad and so shocked, even though I know that her cancer had returned. I knew that she was sort of struggling based on the fact that they did Grease Night on Dancing with the Stars and she had zoomed in and she didn't look super well for that earlier in the year. But she's like an icon to me that I thought would live forever. She like sort of is so like emblazoned in my consciousness that she is sort of not a real person. So I was so shocked. And she's young, I think 73. But today, when the smoke cleared a little bit for me, I was like, oh my God, Olivia Newton-John died. And I felt so heartbroken. I mean, Grease is one of our greatest shared loves. Again, totally in earnest. She is one of my only blondes. She is like one of the only blondes in this world that I could possibly care about. I think that she radiated some sort of like star power that is on another level. And I felt grateful that we did the Mixed Reviews podcast with Gavin and Louie earlier this year, where we got to deep dive on Olivia Newton-John, which was our choice, and we presented to them, and then got to like watch her entire oeuvre and watch It's My Party, which was like this thing that I had never seen, this incredible gay film that was very close to her heart. And I implore you all to watch that film in addition to Xanadu or Grease or whatever other things that you feel like binging this week or listening to. I feel very sad about her death.
So, I regret this. It's one of these things that I feel like I have been more aware of trying to see, like, as you say, icons like JoJo Siwa, but seeing, like, people that are so significant to culture before they pass, like seeing them in concert, whatever, spending the money because it's like, it's a moment you'll remember forever, hopefully. And I regret that I never thought to see Olivia Newton-John live, but you actually saw her in Vegas, like solo dolo, which is one of my sort of favorite things that you ever did. I wasn't with you. I just remember you telling me you like had a turkey sandwich at the bar and then you went to see her. And is there anything you can share from like seeing her live that was sort of special or like? Yeah,
I mean, it was at the Flamingo, which I think that's where like the Drag Race show is now. And the Flamingo is like very, I've only been to Vegas really to see Celine Dion. And then also I used to go for work a lot. So I had been there a few times for work. And so my boss had this incredible suite where we were hosting people. I worked for a wine importer. And so he had to leave a day early. So it was like my job to close out the suite. And it was this incredible room at Caesar's Palace that I would have never been able to afford. It was like $3,500 a night. And so I had like room service turn everything, do a cleanup. And we had like 25 open bottles of extremely good wine and champagne that I had like corked. So it was one of these, like the shower had like 3 angles of heads on each side. I took like 2 bottles of champagne that were open into the shower with me and I blasted Olivia Newton-John because like my treat to myself that night was to buy a ticket for myself to go see Olivia Newton-John at the Flamingo, which I did, and I got dressed up and I got wasted in the shower by myself in this extremely fancy room. And then I went and ate a turkey sandwich at the bar and I sat next to strangers. Then I went and sat next to strangers at the show, and they were Canadian and they had come into town to see Olivia Newton-John because they were super fans. And she came out in a white suit and she sang every single hit. You know what I mean? Just like every single hit. There was a weird backup singer that put on a leather jacket to sing You're the One That I Want with her, and it was weird. But she like delivered I Honestly Love You, Magic. She gave everything that you could have possibly wanted. And I think I read her book in anticipation of the podcast podcast that we did. And I found out later that she had like excruciating like back pain and was like getting cortisone shots in her back and like laying on her dressing room floor before she went out to do the Vegas show. But that it was her favorite residency. It was like her favorite concert turn that she ever did. So yeah, I do highly recommend. This has been like my mission, that if you can see the people that you love or even that you think are like important to you, even if they're not in great voice anymore, even if you think they're not going to deliver what they maybe once would have, I'm making a lot of pitches. This is getting very weird, but I do think it's like you owe them that because they've given you a lifetime of pleasure, or will give you like a lifetime of catalog of things that you can listen to that you love. You owe them, if you can afford it, $50 to go see them do what they do, even if it's at a state fair. You know what I mean? Like, this business is tough. It's a nightmare. So to have a career is something I think I really respect. I'm going to stop talking now because I'm getting very earnest. But like, really, go see the Olivia Newton-Johns of the world. They are worth your time and your investment. We need to schedule a Grease screening.
Absolutely. We haven't watched it. Maybe we watched it this year, actually. But.
We did actually watch it this year. We were like, let's watch something that we've always wanted to watch, like that Dutch film. And then we were like,
applause.
You just want to watch Grease instead?
I'll never watch that movie. It's still in cellophane. But yes, we watched Grease instead, and it's just so fucking good. We watched it to prepare for Dynamanoff, and I'm going to say that it was the right call.
It 100% was, yes.
This has been quite an intro, folks. We've thrown a lot of recommendations at you. We'll put links in the episode description if you want to like follow any of these things. Anne will put it in the show notes if you want to see any clips, if you want to watch the things. But, we're excited to be back here with you this month. And we do have some important news to share with you about season 5. And that is that we have made the very thoughtful and informed decision that moving forward, at least for the time being, we are going to make You Might Know Her From a monthly show. This show is very important to us. We love doing this. We love putting these stories. We think of it as sort of like a living document or like an archive of really important stories from women and non-binary performers. However, we both have full-time jobs. We both are sort of in transition in different ways in those careers, we'll call them, and we also have like lives that are outside of this podcast as well, and a friendship that we hope survives this podcast. So we decided it was really important right now for us to sort of rein it in to make sure that we can continue to put out a good product, that maybe we needed to like hone it in, just focus on booking great interviews, doing those great interviews, and getting them out to you monthly rather than sort of scurrying around and feeling like maybe, we weren't able to keep up. So we hope you all understand that decision. We hope that you will stay with us. Hopefully, maybe one day we will be able to quit our jobs and do this as a full-time job. But until that is the day, this is just something we need to do to make sure that we are able to maintain our sanity and also maintain the integrity of this project. So, Anne, did I forget anything? Does that sound succinct?
That sounds so succinct, and really it is true that we are very much committed to this project. And like Damian said, I think we want to focus on getting, I'll just be honest, the Loretta Devines of the world, which are the people that are at the top of our list and have remained at the top of our list since day one, so that we're giving you all meat, no filler, baby. And that is true. And we love you and feel so grateful that we've had people that have stuck with us. I feel like we found some people that found us this summer and have been diving into the archives. We have 126 episodes, which is wild, and those are evergreen. So if you haven't, please feel free to dig in and keep sending us those names, because we are still banking guests as much as we can and getting those out to you, but we are trying to go A-list for season 5. So with that said, our season premiere of season 5 is going to be September 22nd. So we're going to drop, the plan is to be the third Thursday of the month so that you can get ready and look out for that. So thank you again for your ears throughout 4 seasons of You Might Know Her From. This is our greatest pleasure. And like Damian said, like our day jobs, because that's what I call mine, is not my passion. So we do hope that someday, despite the work transitions that we're both having, that this becomes the career. And we love you so much.
So with all 3,500 minutes of that said, let's get to this month's interview. We were so stoked to sit down with Broadway luminary, Tony nominee, beautiful actor and singer, Jennifer Laura Thompson. She just was a total hoot, and we got to talk to her all about her stunning career on the Great White Way.
You might know her from Broadway productions of Dear Evan Hansen,
Wicked,
Nice Work If You Can Get It,
Footloose,
Lend Me a Tenor,
and Urinetown.
We are so excited because sitting with us today is actress, singer, and Tony nominee Jennifer Laura Thompson. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we have a lot to dive into, but we just need to be upfront with this and say that to date, the original 2001 Broadway production of Urinetown, the musical, is one of the top 5 things either one of us has seen in New York.
Oh, yes!
This is a shared love of Damien and I's. So the show was so full of like weird, specific, really big choices that were all grounded in the same world with this incredible cast. But when you started building your Urinetown character of Hope Cladwell, who is like the character sort of a send-up of the classic ingenue of the musical theater? Where did you start? Like, you cut your teeth playing ingenues like Julie Jordan in the national tour of Carousel. Was there any Julie Jordan like in Hope Cladwell?
None, except for the innocence. You know, that's the one similarity that they had. The approach to her was complete honesty, no matter how insane or bizarre her comments were. Everything she spoke was her truth. I mean, not to dive away from what you're asking me, but one of the main directions our director gave her, John Randall, gave us was to treat it like it was an episode of Law and Order, so that everything was very serious and so we had a great time with that. And so to treat that script with just complete honesty and the reality of what they're dealing with, the reality of the fear of what they're dealing with, was actually really fun.
Yeah, the cast also seemed to be like all on the same page in the same world. Was that something that like was immediate, or did it take time to sort of get that tone right for everybody?
I think we all agreed to be there for the same reason. There was such a heavy amount of veterans in this cast, and I at that point hadn't made much of a stamp in the Broadway world. So to know that I was in company with Nancy Opal and Jeff McCarthy and certainly Hunter Foster, and the entire cast was committed to that project. So we dove in with the same level of commitment, and beyond that, we all had the experience of working at the American Actors Theater, which is now known as the John Cullum Theater, which is housed above a police station on 54th Street.
So cool.
And we shared one dressing room. There was a sheet dividing all of us and one bathroom, and no matter who you were stuck in this little dive of a dressing room in this, at the time it was a pit of a theater. It was, falling apart. The chairs, half of them didn't open or, stay up, but it was perfect. And because we went through that sort of camp-like experience, it made us even closer and more committed.
Also, like at the Henry Miller, didn't they have like water droplets echoing through? This is like my vague memory of seeing it. They like made it because that theater was so run down anyway that when it did get its Broadway run, it was like, no, was that?
I don't think it was on purpose. I think it was just there.
It really did sound like they were like, oh, they're giving us sound effects.
People are still talking about it on all that chat, the drip that they felt on their eyebrow that night.
Is that still around, all that chat?
Yes, baby.
Okay, Jennifer. Yes, it is. It's as intense as ever, as psychotic as ever. I love it.
I have to go back to it. Yeah. Oh my God, I love it.
So, okay, you were Tony nominated for the role, and the cast got to perform at the Tonys, so they did Run Freedom Run and sort of put everyone on stage in the 2002 Tonys. But like, you were bound and gagged, and everyone was essentially performing around you while you also did the choreography. Like, was that irritating?
That was my virginal experience on the Tony stage. Bound and gagged, really proud. Also, there was no pressure. Hunter was freaking out because it's a big responsibility to sing that song and sing it live and do it well. And everybody wanted to do a great job. And I was like, I got to do nothing. I got to get carried around, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it was fun for me.
It feels like a revival, like a Urinetown revival, makes so much sense in the political climate. Like, why do you think it hasn't happened yet?
That's a good question. I keep posing the idea. I'd love to come back as Pennywise.
Yes.
I'd love that.
Would you belt it all? Would you belt it all? We talked to Opal about that, like how she belted it all.
I would. Oh, she's a phenomenon. I can't do what she would do. I would do what I would do, and that's a nice mix. I think I could do something like that.
Yes.
I would love that.
Yeah, I would hate if that would prevent me from doing the role, but she's there's no one like Nancy Opal.
Yeah.
I have to be really honest. Like, I first came to your work, obviously, in the original Broadway cast of Footloose, the musical. This was your Broadway debut. It was based on, or it is based on, a dance movie about a town where dancing is illegal, I think. And you played Ariel, the preacher's daughter, and have a lot to do, but namely this wonderful rendition of Holding Out for a Hero. And I was like revisiting it all over the last few weeks as we were preparing for this. And I was like, I don't know that it was the first jukebox musical, but it felt specific. And like, was it daunting knowing that your big solo number was this top 40 hit made famous by Bonnie Tyler?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm no Bonnie Tyler, but we took what was a great score that fit the plot of the movie. It wasn't like we took a movie and added songs that matched the story. Dean Pitchford had written music that was so, the lyrics that were so profoundly of the time of the story. And we did get a lot of flack for it being a movie turned musical, that you can't do that. That's not Broadway. That's not authentic. It's not good enough. Well, look at where we're at now.
I know, it's wild.
You know, over and over and over, we see the same attempt, and it's sometimes successful, sometimes not, but it's a genre that exists now. And so I'm proud to be amongst one of, I don't know how many shows tried that before, but we did get a lot of flack for it. And it did feel like we were sort of paving the way, and we did it sort of stubbornly. I remember the reviews came out, they were not kind. And our producers came in and made a speech about, we are not going to let them stop us because the audiences want this. And they did for 2.5 years, which is a healthy run for a Broadway show.
Totally. So. Yeah, and like some of the songs were actually from the soundtrack, right? Like from the movie soundtrack, and then some were new songs. Of them.
Yeah, some were new, but the majority were from the soundtrack. And I remember listening to them on the radio back in the 80s. And I knew all of them. And then, of course, the new ones were written to suit the characters and the situations that they were in as well.
When you did that number on the Today Show, like, what time do you have to get up to go perform that number?
So hideous. So hideous. You all get up at like 5 a.m. and you get yourself together and you slap your face on. It feels like a mask. And you do your hair and it feels like a helmet. And then you go in when you can barely see.
Yeah, your
straight.
eyes are still small.
Oh, yeah. And the even worse, I remember that we arrived at the Good Morning America stage, or set anyway. It was outdoors at the time. And we were not allowed to sit. There was no chairs, so we were all sitting on the ground inside of a nearby building. And that security guard kept saying, you can't sit on the floor. It's like, what are we, animals? We're waiting to perform, and we're exhausted.
Why can't they afford a chair for you? What is this?
I don't know. No respect. No respect.
Okay, Jennifer, for our listeners, of course you played Connor's mom, Cynthia Murphy, in the Pasek and Paul Tony Award-winning Broadway musical, Dear Evan Hansen. So you started with the show back at DC's Arena Stage in 2015. You moved with it off Broadway and then played the role on Broadway for, I think, 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. Was there a moment either in those early rehearsal days or on stage at some moment where you sort of, everything clicked and you knew this is going to be sort of like this monster mega hit that it eventually became?
Honestly, I knew the day that we arrived for a cold read-through. Michael Greif had invited myself and some others to read through this new untitled musical. And Ben Platt sang some of it, Justin and Benj sang some of the rest of it, and those of us who were asked to read it cold read it. We weren't allowed to turn the page until we started, and I knew it was going to be huge. I knew it. I thought at the time, this is my musical theater dream answered. This is what I want musical theater to be, and not to diss any other genre in any other way. The story was so important. The music was compelling and memorable and beautiful, and it was closer to a pop style. It was moving so far away from traditional Broadway style, and I was taken with it. And that was the first day. That was, I think, a few years before we even went to DC.
Oh my God.
We did several sit down and read through, sit down and stand up and read through, do a presentation, do a staged presentation, and then we went to DC. And it was a lot of steps, but I was not going to give it up. I gave up other jobs to stay with it, and I don't regret it.
something I was thinking about today was like, so Dee Hoty played your mom in Footloose. And
Right.
I was wondering if, like, she gave you any sort of, like, showbiz wisdom when you were making your Broadway debut, and, like, if you, like, bestowed any of that to, like, the kids of Dear Evan Hansen who were making their Broadway debut.
She and I are very different people. Not in a bad way. She's a lovely woman. She was very much a mother figure to me throughout that process, and throughout, several years. She was just a part of my life, and she still is. And I idolized her. I respected her. I still do. I still have great respect for her and her career. So yeah, I listened to every word she would say, and she was very, very professional. And if there was any sort of glitch in the rehearsal process, and there were many points where we suddenly had a new choreographer come in, which threw a wrench into the wheels, like, wait, whoa, what's going on? And there's a lot of, changes and fixing, and I was not familiar with that process. And so she was kind of the grounding force that was like, this is how we roll. You just go take the punches and you roll with it and you keep creating. And then I got the worst review of my life. I think it was Ben Brantley. No, not Ben Brantley. It was Frank Rich. Yeah, I think. It said that I was matronly.
That is
matronly
gendered.
And it's so mean. And so I was, everything was such a big deal at that point. I was in my 20s, and I didn't understand how not to take everything personally. And I invested so much of myself into this experience. And I came in the next day after the reviews, and I'm just trying to hold my head high. And I have another performance to do, another God knows how many performances to do. And she just said, you can only get better. And she may not remember that, but I do remember that, and I didn't know how to take it. It's like, well, that's true.
So helpful. Thank you, Dee.
I know she meant well. I know she did.
Can I ask, was that something, did you have a conversation with yourself before, since this was like your debut? I'm not going to read the reviews. I am going to read the reviews. Like, did you see it? Did somebody else tell you? Like, what was your relationship with reviews then? Before and after?
I was not going to read anything. And I won't specify who it was, but someone who was very influential in my life at that point said to me at midnight, don't read the Times.
Oh my gosh. Come on.
And I said, you're an asshole. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. Yeah. That's so fucked up.
Really, exactly. Yeah. So that really, really, and so my husband was the one who went through and said, you don't need to read it. Of course I did, but.
Right. How could you not? I mean, do you have a rule? Like, do you have a rule now with how you deal with that sort of part of your work life?
I try as hard as I can to not read anything, but my husband got in the habit of waking up early. He always has to wake up early, but he would always be the first one without telling me to read everything. So he said, so he could gauge what the day was going to be like, because he knew that eventually I would find out either by the vibe at the theater or hearing accidentally or accidentally just, or if someone says, it's great. They're like, okay, I'll read it. It's very hard. There's a lot of people who say, I don't read reviews. Well, I can say that, but I eventually do. And I try to read it at a point where it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
If they're good, of course I want to read it. Of course you want to believe the good stuff, but then you have to believe all the bad stuff too. So that's rough. It's rough to be judged by people who have 0% in the process of what you're building. And there's so many working pieces, so much hard work to be done to put these shows on the stage, and to have somebody just flippantly write something that simplifies all the hard work that you've done is devastating. Shouldn't be allowed, but I guess, it's a necessary evil.
Yeah, it's hard too, because it's not just like the emotions behind it, but also like the actual, compensatory livelihoods of many people in this business.
Yeah.
That's sort of based around, particularly with the Times, it's like can make or break.
Yes, exactly. Careful with your words.
Yeah.
And then we're at a point where when the industry is struggling through the past 2.5 years, obviously, and was trying to come back, are you allowed to commercially trash something? Is it forbidden to do that? I think about those things. Certainly, I'm not in that position, but for every actor who is out there, striving again to bring art to life.
That's interesting. We even talked about that a little bit with like the Tony nominations and how like things that they sort of overlooked, like they didn't get, like, this is Anne's sort of thing, so I don't want to co-opt her opinion, but like that Funny Girl didn't get like a nomination for Best Revival, and it's like, it robs that show of potentially like running longer without having that like label, and like
meanwhile, Best Actor has 7 nominations. It's like just throw them a bone. What are you doing? You don't have to give it to them.
I know. But then last year, there was just one for Best Actor? Are you kidding me? Like, what? That's just rude. I mean, yay for Aaron Tveit, but that's just rude.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah. I love Tony Award. I love the Tony Award nominating committee, though.
Yes, we all love them. We all love them.
It's a very complicated process. I understand.
If I may bring it back to D. Hody for a second, did any of that experience though inform the way that you were with some of those young people in Dear Evan Hansen? Like, it just your dynamic with them.
It's interesting to be on the. What I remember at Footloose was that there was definitely a dichotomy between the adult cast and the younger cast. There was not a lot of intermingling that made us feel like peers as much as the people of wisdom and experience, and then the rest of us. And by the time we were into the mix with Dear Evan Hansen, I mean, the cast had dwindled down to 8 people, so there was not a whole lot of, there was 3 of us who were adults and the rest of us kids, but we were peers. We were like family from the get-go, and once then all the understudies had joined, and it was like a big family of a lot of Broadway debuts, and a lot of people who I never expected would walk up and have such a tremendous amount of respect that I was just in awe of, that they were looking to me the way that I looked to D. Hody. But I also made it very clear that I was not that she ever put a wall up, not that any of the adults put a wall up. It was just, I don't know, it was the nature of, I think, what we were doing at the time, and the nature of Dear Evan Hansen was we were just cohesive and learning from each other, and I had a lot to learn. There was a lot to learn even in the world of what the show deals with, social media, for example. I was on Facebook. I'm not on TikTok still, but I wasn't on Twitter. I wasn't on Instagram. That's a whole world I had to learn a lot about. And so we learned a lot from each other. But I really enjoyed being the parent and feeling like I had a really close connection with this other generation.
So I know there's been a lot of talk about the film adaptation of Dear Evan Hansen in the last year. We're just going to keep it simple with the question. Did you see it? And if so, did you play a drinking game while you watched it?
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
It's no disrespect to the genre, but I choose to preserve the memory of the version that I was a part of.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see it in any other different form. I never even went back to the Broadway show. I don't want to see someone else play Cynthia. I don't want to see someone else play any role. It's a memory for me that is in stone, and I want it to stay that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. In 2004, you stepped into the bubble as the first replacement Glinda in the Broadway production of Wicked. So Kristen Chenoweth is, I think, 4'11". And so the story goes that when you joined the production, they had to make Glinda's bubble taller for you so you could comfortably float on stage. So how tall are you? Anne thinks
5'7".
I'm so impressed with. I tried to gauge your height next to Ben Platt. I was like, I think he's 5'9" and something. Okay, 5'7". I was lowballing you on Friday.
It's one of Anne's special
talents. It was a great stage too. It could have been that as well, because the stage was
there. Yeah,
but
I was like, he maybe wears lifts. He has
sneakers on, but I don't know if he had a lift.
Okay, 5'7". It's on the record. Thank you.
Yeah, and they couldn't make it bigger, but they cut out all of the beautiful, ornate, curly filigrees and stuff. Because not only was I taller, I had this crown that was about 10 inches taller than my head. So to fit me in there, they had to cut all of the beautiful the decorative elements. They had to cut it all off, like with the welders. Like, I ruined everything.
I wonder if you're the tallest Glinda to date. I need to look up on Wiki. I'm sure there's a Wiki for it. I need to.
There is, and I remember glancing at some point, seeing a title. There was somebody else was either the same or maybe an inch taller. Because there's that question that comes up: who's the tallest?
Right. Yeah, Anne's 5'11", so we are big proponents of tall women on our podcast.
Oh, right! Wow, that's amazing.
Kristen Chenoweth is such a specific actor. Like, how taking on that role in this like huge blockbuster? Like, how did you make sure to differentiate your Glinda from hers?
The first thing was that I was given permission to make it mine. The producers specifically said, and the director said, you do not have to do Kristen Chenoweth. They want me to do what I do, bring myself to the role. And so there was a lot of Hope Cladwell in there to begin with. That's sort of my starting point, which you wouldn't see necessarily in the performance, but there was that. She says what she thinks. Doesn't matter what, if it makes sense or if it's fair or if it's nice or not. So that level of just blatant honesty. The book is so good. It's so funny. I don't even think you have to try that hard to make it funny. But making it simple, I think not trying too hard is the key to me for playing a really strong Glinda, because it's on the page. If you put a hat on a hat, you ruin it. If you put a crown on a crown, per se. I loved that show. I loved doing that show. But I was exhausted. I had a 6-month-old baby when I started.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There's so many things that can go wrong with Glinda's track. Like, what was the worst or the weirdest mishap that you had while you were doing that show?
One of the first mishaps was that the bubble didn't come down. So I was strapped 40 feet behind the curtain, looking down at all the village people going, she's coming! She's coming! She's coming! You know, it went on and on and on.
Wait, for how long?
Too long. I didn't measure time, but it was like, let's say like maybe about 2 minutes, like enough where you're like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's scary.
So when I finally came down on the first line is, it's good to see me, isn't it? Like, yes! Like, thank God.
It killed.
Get on with the show. Right. There's, like you said, there's room for so much error, because there's a quick change and a jewelry change and a run under the stage. And of course I was there when Idina fell through the stage, which was
oh my God,
devastating.
That's terrifying.
I was stuck in front of the giant panel while they were doing the shadow play behind it, and saw it happen but didn't understand what had happened. And I'm standing there waiting, and finally a dresser from off stage said, come off stage. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, and then there was at least a 45 minute wait. We were so close to the end of the show. I think 3.5, 4 minutes to the end of the show. We waited, and Idina was sent off in an ambulance, and they got Shoshana Bean in costume in green, and we finished the show. It was the weirdest situation. And when the audience didn't leave, they were waiting to see what would happen. So kudos to Shoshana, and my God, that woman, so incredibly talented.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for her with her Tony nomination. It just, Mr. Saturday Night, oh my gosh.
They got something right.
Oh yeah, she's phenomenal.
Jennifer, you're part of these two shows that have like very passionate fans. Which show would you say has more enthusiastic fans, we'll say? Like Wicked or Dear Evan Hansen?
They're sort of similar in nature. Dear Evan Hansen goes a step further with mental health, which creates a whole different kind of connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because of the character that I played, I had a lot of different responses. I mean, it was overwhelming at Wicked, completely overwhelming. Just the enthusiasm was insane. The screaming and the crying, and like it was a rock concert, and I want a hug, and I love you so much. And I haven't done one since then, but I made a scrapbook. I was overwhelmed by the fan mail. It would come in droves every day, and I read all of it. which a lot of people don't have time to do. But it's not that I took the time like I'm, some sort of saint, but I made a point because I was really interested in the fanaticism, but also the love that people were sharing for the show and the stories. And when I finished the show, I was home with a young child, and so I took the time when he was napping. I was like reliving what I had just gone through for a year. So it was kind of exciting for me. So I have a scrapbook of all that. But that was crazy. But then Dear Evan Hansen was that emotional element. Oh my God, the number of letters that I got in regards to having known someone or having tried to commit suicide, or the impact that show has had on how it's changed their life, how it's impacted their themselves and their families, and the communication between themselves and their families, and that was a different level of emotion. So to answer your question, the enthusiasm, I think Wicked was crazily enthusiastic, and Dear Evan Hansen was really gratifying.
Okay, fair enough. Jennifer Laura Thompson, we have entered the part of the show we call Rapid Fire. This is so that me and Anne can get everything else out that we need to. You can take your time if you need to, but it's really rapid for us. But, here we go.
Okay.
You play a woman who attacks Emily Deschanel, cuts off her hair, and then later kills your own boyfriend in the bathroom in an episode of Law & Order SVU. This is seemingly your first major screen role. So how scary was that set, and who was most method of your co-stars? Harjite, Maloney, Ice-T, or Belzer?
Maloney.
I have to say I screamed at the I was really shocked. I was like, okay, got it. She's like a 30-year-old landlady or something. Okay, cool, got it. And then I was like, wait a minute. Oh, my God. And then I gasped and Googled it for herself. I screamed at the reveal. You're the villain. Wow.
Isn't that the best role, though?
Yeah, I was happy for you. I was so happy that you got to get that.
I was like, yes! I got to know, vaguely, but I got to know Mariska Hargitay in that process. And she was... oh my God. There was nobody that was like so method, because it's already at that stage, the work is methodical. They have to, get the work done. And so they're all in their zone. And I'm like, they're like, okay, where's my mark? And so I was just trying to keep myself calm. But then I get to play a killer. And the director at one point was like, I want you to cry. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Okay. Like, I get it. But this is my first experience with, doing an episodic. And I was like, this is too much for me. I'm going to kill you all. And that seemed to work.
You performed with the cast of Dear Evan Hansen at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I've heard that the Macy's people tell you to hold the microphone square in front of your mouth while you're performing so no one can tell that you're lip syncing. True or false? Not
true in my case.
Okay. No instructions. Okay.
None.
Okay.
No, not in my case.
Who was more of the I don't talk on show days kind of performer, Ben Platt or Idina Menzel? Because they obviously both had to do a lot.
Ooh, I think Ben. They both had really strict, really excellent ways of taking care of themselves. Tina took a steamy hot shower before every show, which helped her vocally. And she was always soft-spoken. And, they both were athletes. Unbelievable. And never missed shows. Never missed shows. Until Dina fell into the stage. And that was tragic.
God.
Jesus
That
Christ.
was the worst. I know.
Okay. Jennifer, you were well known for musicals, but in 2010 you starred opposite Jan Maxwell, Tony Shalhoub, and Anthony LaPaglia in the Broadway revival of the famous farce Lend Me a Tenor. How does your pre-show ritual, meaning like your meal, your warm-up, etc., how does that change when you're doing a play versus a musical?
Well, that's the one play that I've done on Broadway, and I'll say that it's probably the easiest role I'd ever done. There wasn't a lot of emotional commitment. It's a farce, so it's different than anything I'd ever done. I literally would just be able to walk in, put on a costume and makeup, and just do it. And that was a breeze. It was so nice to have that 8 shows a week, because Broadway actors, singers, dancers, we worked so hard. It was nice to do that, even if briefly.
Yeah.
I mean, now, who says that? Most people say, I want the lead role. And I'm like, I want that person who does the 11 o'clock number and then calls it a night.
Totally.
Right.
You know, shows up in the second act, and that's the job I want.
Okay. Putting it out there.
In 2011, you starred in a starry production of Company for the New York Philharmonic opposite Martha Plimpton, Stephen Colbert, John Cryer, Katie Finneran, Patti LuPone, Christina Hendricks, and Nika Noni Rose, among many others. You played Jenny, who gets stoned with Bobby. Did you get method and toke up with any of your famous co-stars, and if so, who?
I didn't, but not that time. But I did have an experience regionally. It was in California, and I'm not a smoker, but one of the actors was a local who had a card, and so he said, I'm going to get the good stuff, the happy stuff. And I was like, are you sure? Because I'd not had any great experiences out of the few in my life that I'd had. True to form, when I was the host of the party, by the way, for a small cast, and true to form went straight to paranoia. I was in like a semi one bedroom. There was just a sliding door that separated the bed area, sleeping area, from the living room area where the party was happening. And I locked myself in the bedroom and like went into the bathroom and crawled up into a ball. I was like, are they gone yet? Are they gone yet? Are they gone yet? Are they gone yet? I thought they were going to kill me. And my nice friends cleaned up my whole apartment and left me there.
So you channeled that for Jenny.
How fast it hit her? Yes, exactly.
You're good. You're really good at being stoned. I got a kick out of it. I feel like it's hard. I feel like some people are not good at being high in acting, and I thought you did a great job.
Or drunk. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. You have a Grammy for the cast recording of Dear Evan Hansen and a Daytime Emmy for your performance on The Today Show.
Right.
You're halfway to your EGOT. So, what show and role, and let's say it's a revival for the purpose of this game, what show and role would you like to win your Tony for? We're manifesting it.
God. All right. If I could create a role, that would be my first choice, but I don't know what that would be. If it were to be a role, it's between Edie and Grey Gardens. Or it's Pennywise.
Okay.
Okay, I'm into both of these.
Because nothing's been written that I could imagine in my head. But of the two things, if someone were to say, I've never in my life said, when someone says, is there a role you'd love to play? I've never been able to answer that, which is weird, but I don't aspire to recreate. I aspire to create. But those two roles, I would love to do.
I'm so glad you said it because thanks to the fine folks over at Broadway World, we found that you were in a 2005 reading of Grey Gardens, the musical. So I'm assuming that was Little Edie in Act 1, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So how long do you think we have to wait before we get your like big Edie Act 1, Little Edie Act 2? This is like, as you said, this is, I think, a perfect role for you. And I didn't know it until I saw it and I said, wow, you would be incredible in that role.
Thank you. How long? I don't know. I've got a solid window of years where I could play it. I think maybe now is too soon, but let's hope in this decade. Or
really
less,
like
maybe
that.
within the
love
next
that.
5
Ready
years.
for it.
Let's say that's 5 years. 3 years. Let's say 3 years. Put it out there.
Great.
Although I spoke to Michael Grafe about it briefly, I said, would you do that and would you cast me? And he said, well, do you really want to lose your mind? Like, do you really want to play that role? So you'd be much better off playing it regionally for a couple of months and letting it go rather than doing
I'm not sold yet. I'm not sold.
Well, he understands the gravity of playing something very challenging emotionally like that. And, speaking of mental health issues,
yes.
He knows what I went through dealing with what we dealt with in Dear Evan Hansen. So, and it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jennifer, last question. You appeared on The View, seemingly for a Halloween episode, with Idina Menzel to perform For Good. But most importantly, Meredith was in full green alpha drag and like a prosthetic chin, and then Star was dolled up as Glinda. On a scale of 1 to 10, how toxic was the set of The View on that morning?
Oh, my God. You tell me. What did it look like to you? because I was blind to the fatigue of having, woke up at 3:30 to nurse my son and then get up again at 5 to and then come up, show up and put on all that stuff and, barely could make words.
I think Meredith Vieira's view was much lighter than later views, but I don't know because I couldn't tell with the Glinda and Elfie drag that they had going on, but I can guarantee that neither one of them wanted to be wearing what they were wearing. I'm pretty sure Star was like, "What the hell? What?" But she said she was a huge Wicked fan, and I was into that. She had seen.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. I don't think she wanted to have to dress up though. She's
Listen,
such a beautiful woman.
That's your job when you're a talk show host. You got to dress up for Halloween. Stick by it.
She was game. She was game.
Jennifer Laura Thompson, this has been a total ball. Thank you so much for being down with us, and we are manifesting this Grey Garden and Urinetown revival for you in the midst of all the other work.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Something that I love is watching your face when you read the You Might Know Her Froms. And I was so grateful that you were going to get Footloose because you said it with a turn of your head and a smile on your face. Because I know that show holds so much emotional resonance for you. And it's like, that is what this show is about. We got to talk to Jennifer Laura Thompson about Footloose, about Urinetown, which I'm obsessed with. And that show is like just something that is lifted on a pedestal in my brain. And I think that, sometimes you see things as an adult and you're like, I don't think that's as good as I thought it was when I was a kid. I think Urinetown is as good as it was when I saw it as a kid. And I hope that revival is happening. We need to get the Urinetown revival on the books. Let's get Jennifer Laura Thompson in the show.
100%. But also that said, the idea of a Broadway revival of Grey Garden starring Jennifer Laura Thompson is also quite thrilling to me.
I honestly, what did I say? I think I read that on the Broadway World message boards. I was like, God, I love the internet. She is a perfect Big Edie first act, Little Edie second act. Her voice is so perfect for that. And she does have a certain Christine Ebersole quality to her voice anyway. So I think that's why it slid so perfectly into place. She's an incredible actor. I don't know should I share this? I feel like this is a little embarrassing, but I feel like we're all for total transparency here. So as a kid, I was very into Urinetown. And when I say kid, I mean I was 21, maybe 20. So I was very into Jennifer Laura Thompson, having seen her in
I think we were
Urinetown.
18 when Urinetown came out.
Okay. So maybe I was 19 when she did this production off Broadway at Second Stage called Little Fish, the musical, starring Alice Ripley and Leah Delaria, and I think Jesse Tyler Ferguson and her and a few other people. Anyway, I went to go see it. I thought the show, it was a Michael John LaCusa show, I think, and it was a fine show, but I waited to talk to Jennifer Laura Thompson after the show because I was such a big fan. So did I tell Jennifer Laura Thompson that I have a picture of me at 20 with her at the stage door wearing a bucket hat that has a fleece lining? No, I didn't tell her that. But that is sort of the full circle pleasure of doing this show, where I feel we still get a little giddy talking to these people that are making art that is very exciting to us. If you don't know Urinetown, I don't know what to tell you. There's not a tape of it, but it's very good. There might be a bootleg if you're willing to watch something really grainy online that is the original cast.
But the original cast recording is excellent, and I highly recommend. It's just such a fucking fun and weird show. I love it so much, and I do think that they should be reviving that. I would love it. Okay, folks, you might forget we do this because we've been on a summer hiatus, sort of, and haven't been doing our normal connections. But guess what? We're gearing up for season 5. And so this week, my beautiful, generous, smart, and kind co-host is going to let you know who our season opener is going to be. Our official season 5 opener. And she's going to do that connecting Jennifer Laura Thompson to next month's guest using only women and non-binary performers' names. Anne, can you do it?
Here we go. Buckle up. Jennifer Laura Thompson was in Damien's beloved Footloose the musical with Kathy Deitch, who we just saw with our dear friend Brenna in Titanic the musical off Broadway at the old UCB, written and starring Marla Mandel, who was, of course, in Sister Act the musical with star replacement Raven Simone, who was, of course, in Cheetah Girls with former guest of this show, tremendous guest Sandra Caldwell, who had a small role in Ben is Back, which also co-starred former guest of this show, Jocelyn B.O., who was in Obviously, Russian Doll Season 1 with Natasha Lyonne, who was in Orange is the New Black with former guest of this show, Constance Schulman, who was in Fried Green Tomatoes with Kathy Bates, who was in American Horror Story Apocalypse with former guest of this show, Adina Porter, who was in the much discussed on this podcast 2001 revival of The Women with Cynthia Nixon, who is currently probably filming Gilded Age Season 2 with Deborah Monk doing an Irish accent. Deborah Monk was in Mozart in the Jungle, an Amazon series that neither one of us watched, with Bernadette Peters, who was in the ABC Cinderella with Brandy, who was in Moesha with next month's Season 5 premiere guest.
Wow, that was so fucking satisfying. Good job. A lot of great references, a lot of great, you might know her from callbacks. I love Brandy Norwood. I feel like she showed up in like about 7 you might know her froms at this point.
That's true.
Wow. Really, really, really nice work. Also, I did watch the first few episodes of Mozart in the Jungle, and I remember being like, what is this?
What is it?
It wasn't
literally
even bad.
What
It
is
just
it?
was like so interesting that it was made. I was like,
Yeah.
interesting.
Starring like Gael Garcia Bernal, and I was like, well, I love him, but I don't get this. I don't get it. But maybe I have to go back and watch now, because I saw a picture of like Bernadette Peters and Deborah Monk gardening. I said, yeah, I'll watch that.
Totally. Folks, we hope you are as excited for that as we are, and we hope that you are locked in, subscribed, and following You Might Know Her From wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're doing that, please follow us on, I guess, social media. And you can find me at Damian Bellino. It is Damian with an A. And you can find my cohort over here at Rodeman. That's RODEMANNE.
You Might Know Her From is produced by us. That's Ann Rodeman and Damian Bellino. And we want to thank the just glorious humans that keep us on track. That is Grumpy Entertainment, Jason Jude Hill, and Daniel Sears. And every piece of editing, every iceberg lettuce crispiness that you hear on this podcast, all that editing is courtesy of the wonderful, the brilliant, the great, the kind. He's got a nice beard. Is that right? Daniel, did you shave your beard? Did you shave it for summer? I can't remember. I saw your face last week. Anyway, he's got a beautiful face. Thank you, Daniel Sears.
Special thanks to Gang. All that music you hear underscoring each and every episode of You Might Know Her From is by Gang. Gang is 3/4 women. Gang is from Philadelphia. We love them, and you can stream Gang wherever you listen to your music.
All the information from each and every episode is linked out at the bottom of the episode description. That's where I put each and everything, which is going to be like, is it Melissa Gilbert in Claim to Fame? Is it Jose Canseco's mom? I'm not sure, but all that information is going to be there, and I will be watching it this weekend. Thank you so much, Damien. There's one other thing that we haven't talked about in person, and that is, of course, the fact that on the plane ride back from Seattle, Hannah and I both watched side by side Couples Therapy Season 2 because it was available on JetBlue.
Baby.
You've been extolling the virtues of couples therapy for so long, and I thought, I don't think this is going to be for me. And then I was looking for something because I had worked so long, and then I only had so much time, and I didn't want to start a movie, and I was like, I need a series, but I'm not interested in any of these. And I thought couples therapy is exactly the thing to start.
It's
right
calming.
now. It is calming, and it's also the way it's shot is beautiful. And then what's her name? What's the therapist's name? Orna. Okay, we've said this, we texted about this, but she is like, I said she's like a sexy Marcia Gay Harden, and then did you say somebody else said she was mixed with somebody else? Now,
Kristen Johnston. I think there's a little bit of Kristen Johnston in there in some way.
Interesting. Just her tone, her facial expression. Sometimes she comes out with a great question. Is she a gay person or no?
I don't believe so, but I don't know.
I think she's just European. But I thought there was like the B-roll footage was like maybe there was another woman at her house one time with her kid, and I was like,
not
what?
to my knowledge. I think it's usually her kids or kid at home and like their dog that also goes. And I don't mind that her dog is in the office. I'm into it. Yeah, it's beautiful. I highly recommend. You know, I've been loving giving recommendations recently, but it's so excellent. And it's season 2 when there's like COVID happens. So like
yeah.
Do you know?
So there's like the Orthodox couple, the Orthodox straight couple. There's the gay male couple that lives uptown. There's like the couple that has a baby together. Anyway, I honestly didn't think it was going to be a show that I would enjoy, and then immediately I was like, oh my god. And then was like, you've got to watch episode 4 so we can catch up and watch it together. I was like, oh my god, now this is a show we're going to watch.
I'm going to tell you something off the record. Like when we get offline, I'm going to tell you something.
Okay. That's what I know. It's good.